I am fabulous, actually.
Yay!
Yeah, doing really good. I haven't updated my boards in like a week and a half. Not on purpose. It was just I hadn't even been doing my like normally I post like what I'm doing
Yep.
for the workout, and that got a little slow last week too. I was just wrapping stuff up so I could take this week off. So I was just like preoccupied doing other shit so I could take this week off.
Okay, I'm not going to do that because I'm going to type it. It's going to rock the boat. Try to get a better angle.
How are you? It's so good to see you. I'm always excited for these.
Same. I'm just opening up your file.
Yeah.
We can go back and compare. So now you're on a week off.
Now I'm on a week off.
Nice.
It's going to be super nice. I'm going to take a week off this week and then the first week of August.
At the games.
You know what? I decided not to go to the games this year.
Ah.
I know. You know, this actually came out of a check-in that I had with Gordon.
Yeah.
And it was about like making time. And I love going to the games, but I haven't had like, and some people do use their like, you know, their vacations to do the games. But this year I was like, you know what? I just don't want to go.
Mm-hmm.
Like nothing bad. It's nothing. I want to go to the beach.
True. I get that. I'll be there one day.
I was like,
Yeah.
I'm going to go visit some friends and hang out with my little quasi nieces and nephews and just have a good time at the beach that week.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right.
But I'll be rooting you guys on.
Thank you.
Yes.
All the positivity we can need.
Yes.
So things are still going well with your fitness?
Things are going really good.
Okay. Anything you're proud of? You want to highlight?
Well, it's been interesting. I should say that. The workouts themselves are going really, really good. But about 2.5 weeks ago, I had an issue on my arm pop up that's kind of back in full force. It hasn't really been affecting my workouts. It's more mental. Mm-hmm. But about a year ago, I was going to have surgery, and then I put it off because it suddenly went away. And I was like, gosh, you know, like I've been through surgery before. And I'm like, if I don't need to do it, then I absolutely don't want to. But I have a compressed ulnar nerve in my elbow, and it runs all the way down to my wrist. And then there's another compressed one down here at the wrist. And so, like, for whatever reason, I was doing a workout out there. I don't think it was the workout. I think it was just anytime that I have the barbell or anything like here and it's pushing down, it must have just irritated it that day, and then it hasn't gone away.
Okay.
So I told Miranda, I was like, you know what? I just keep my wrist braces on. So that's kind of the workaround. I wear my wrist brace every time I'm out there. And then I was like, you know what? I have my appointment tomorrow. And if they tell me that it needs surgery, well, we'll just work around it. I mean, there's nothing else I can do.
Have you done physio?
Huh?
Have you done physio for it?
I have.
And it didn't work.
Doing that all last year. Well, I thought it healed it because it went away. So I was like, well, I don't need surgery.
No, you might need some maintenance though.
Maybe. So that's what we're going to talk about tomorrow, because my goal is like, I want to explore every other alternative than surgery.
Yeah.
But it's spreading. That's the part that bothers me a little bit. It was just in my pinky, but now it's spreading to my hands. And I'm like, shit. And it's negating my ability to like hold on to things properly.
Yeah.
So that was kind of a pisser. But, you know, Miranda's like, so what are you thinking? And I was like, you know, I'm not overly excited about the idea of being in a sling for 6 weeks
Ooh.
if that's the alternative. But I was like, you know what? This is not the first time that I've worked through a surgery, if that's what we feel is best. And I'm like, we'll just snowplow through it.
So if the physio helped the first time, then definitely see if that can help. And it will take time because nerves don't heal as fast as everything else. So it's just a longer process. And then you have the full gym. So if you can substitute any barbell with like dumbbells or kettlebells and like, any front rack stuff, then you can keep your wrist. Cause like this position will put the nerve on stretch.
Yeah.
That could be another alternative because you can go through the process, but it'll definitely make the exercising part harder, which will impact the weight loss. So if you want to try and like keep that target for the rest of the year, as long as we can manage the injury, then that might be like, or if you need to schedule it for like January, like if it becomes a surgery issue, then trying to plan it in advance for later down in the year so that we can maximize everything, because we can always move differently. But if you don't have your arm, then you don't have your arm.
I know. And I was like, man, but it doesn't have to be. I'm like,
it doesn't have to be.
I was like, no matter what, it's going to be fine. And I'll find ways to work around it. Even if I'm only doing the movements with one arm, it's not ideal, but for the sake of keeping moving, like I don't want to sit still. That's for sure.
Yeah.
I was like, that's a big effing bummer.
Yeah, ulnar nerve thing is pretty common in CrossFit because of everything that we do with like wrist flexions and things like that. Like Jeff had it really bad for like 2 years when we started, 2 years. And it was like, you need to like stop doing what you're doing. It was like, well, can we have an alternative? It's like, and eventually that's the thing, like it will go away, but it takes a really, really long time. He managed it with anti-inflammatories because it was just like, there's nothing else, like all the gliding, like all the physio, all of that. Like if it's inflamed, it's inflamed. Like there's nothing eventually that you can do apart from medication. So I think there's definitely like other avenues that you can explore, but it is a longer healing. Like if you are going through the physio and all of that, it does take more patience because like it's just not something that is easily fixed.
Well, something interesting too, like my mom had it. She had the surgery a couple years ago and she was over this last weekend and she kept like feeling around on her elbow. And I was like, do you still feel that? And she's like, yeah, sometimes I still feel it in my pinky. And every part of me is like, why the hell would I consider surgery if that didn't help you? I'm like, but anyway, so we'll see what they say. But I've been doing all the right things. I wear my brace at night, try to keep my elbow straight. Honestly, I don't even think it's from CrossFit as much as I think it's from, I'm a project manager and I spend most of my day like on the computer and my elbow is always sitting like this.
Yeah.
And I think it was just like,
it could be.
Finally did it.
Yeah.
Because it wasn't like I was out there
like
and all this
tunnel, right? It's just the position and it puts pressure. And that's the thing, like there's nothing to do. It'll just like create some inflammation and
Yeah. So what I had to do was like I had to change kind of the ergonomics of my desk. So I had to put like a pad over here where I lay down my arm.
Yeah.
And just try to keep it straight. And then out in the gym, kind of how I'm working around it is the wrist straps and then kind of leaning off the barbell and going more towards dumbbell work for now. While it has gotten better in the last couple of days. I don't know. We'll see what they say tomorrow.
Yeah. Cool. And then for the nutrition, how has it gone since we readjusted food intake? Like, how are you feeling?
I feel like everything is going fine. I probably did a mess up, so I'll confess. So I had some visitors from out of town and they came in 2 weeks ago. And so they were visiting and they're like, hey, let's do like a barbecue picnic one night. And I was like, yeah, we could do that. So we went to the store and I was trying to think of like creative things. And we were walking around and we chose all these different salads at this deli, right? Like this kind of salad, this kind of salad. I was like, this looks great. And one of the things that they wanted was cheese. Now, I don't eat a lot of cheese because it irritates me, but for some reason, I was like, maybe we'll try this cheese. It was a bad mistake. My body hated it.
Okay.
I literally had probably 4 slices of this whiskey cheese or whatever it was. And then I had this spread of like different kinds of salads. There was nothing crazy other than the cheese.
Yep.
Girl, I got on the scale on Sunday. This was on Saturday. I got on the scale on Saturday and I was literally up 12 pounds. And I'm like, is that even possible? I thought it was a fluke. So I get on the scale the next day and it still said 12. And I'm like, I mean, I would have had to have eaten like 3 blocks of cheese to gain that kind of weight. And I'm like, okay.
This is possible.
Holy shit.
Like, it doesn't take a lot of cheese to create a block. So it's possible.
I know, but
yeah.
I know, but like that was ludicrous. But the problem is that it didn't go down. And I'm like, okay, I know I didn't consume like 12,000 calories that day. That's insane. But what I
do, that's the thing. Like the 12 pounds is part, like it's not all fat. It's partly water. It's partly something else. Like your digestion has been a little bit slower. So there's just more in you.
I think dairy is just one of those things that causes massively severe inflammation in my body. I know better and I did it anyway. Taught me a good lesson. I just have to stay away from cheese. It doesn't matter what kind of cheese. I always think, you know how you go to those delis and they have like all these cheeses from like around the world and you're like, maybe I can try this cheese. No kind of cheese, Athena, none. So we were up 12. So it took like the better part of a week and a half for that number to come down again, to get back down where I was. And then got on the scale just this morning, actually. And so we're 2 pounds from where we were. So that's good. Finally got some like momentum again. But honestly, it's been like, aside from like, I'll get to update my boards, which is good. So we'll be at 68. The halfway point will be in about a week and a half, which is cool. It's been just really a lot of just reflection for me the last week or so.
And did you keep everything else equal? And so another thing.
Yeah.
Because now we're on 3-1. So when did that barbecue happen? Like day 3, or was it the rest day, or?
Well, hold on. I can tell you. That's a great question. That happened on a. It was a rest day.
So that could play around with it. I'm trying to find.
What does that mean?
Whiskey cheese. So usually what people do is they'll adjust their macros / calories based on their activity level, right? So oftentimes people eat more on the days that they train and they eat less on the days that they're not training, right? You might also train a little bit more if you know you have a supper coming, like an outing, something special. And so people try to play with their output based on their input potentially. But when you're zoning, you're always eating the same amount,
right,
day after day. And then because we're on 3-1, well, that day you're not spending those calories. So technically what you should have noticed is that you'll always be a little bit heavier after that rest day, because you just didn't spend the calories that you would usually spend and you kept eating the same, which is fine because the trend over time, and your body needs those extra calories, extra macros to make sure that it's recuperating and recovering from the 3 days of intense exercise that you've had. So it's not an issue. It's just like there might be a little bit of a trend where it's like I'm going down, going up a little bit, going down, going up a little bit. So if you,
and that is what it does.
Yeah. And if you drastically change that one meal for that one day, but it's also on a recovery day, that might have just like swung the scale, like just excessively. And I mean, it's not what we want, but it's kind of normal if we want to happen. That kind of swing happens.
Well, I was like, I hadn't even done it yet, but I was gonna look up whiskey cheese. I'm like, what was in that?
That's what I'm trying to find on
And
my fitness
the
ball.
body was just like, no way. I mean, I haven't had any alcohol since the first of the year. That was like one of the things that I'm like, I can commit to that this year. I mean, I don't drink a lot anyway, but
not spelling whiskey properly. Cheese.
What ingredient was in whiskey cheese that caused? Well, it wasn't
Well, just like I said, cheese in general. Like I found
cheese.
This other one. No, where is it?
Anyway, that was like one of those things where it wasn't like we never really talked about. I don't think we talked about cheese in the very beginning, just because I don't eat a lot.
We talked about dairy.
We did talk.
I know that you don't eat a lot of fats because they go up very quickly.
Yeah, I just don't get a lot of bang for buck on fats.
Exactly. So if we think of like I don't think that cheese was a protein, because cheese can fall in either category depending on what it is. But even if it's considered a protein, there's still a high level of fat in it, which is fine. But if it is a fat, it's like one block is easily like 5 to 6 grams. So that's why, like, let's say you had 5 pieces and each piece is a block, then you had 5 blocks.
Yeah, they were like the size of like your finger.
Yeah.
Like little chunk.
Yeah.
Anyway, bad idea.
So that's like when you're adding. So I would recommend, if ever this happens again, and let's say you did, like, you don't want to cut out cheese forever, like this might be temporary. If you add something new, then you have to calculate what one block is and make sure that you weigh it and you have that reference. Because right now we don't know how much you ate. Ideally it would be around 5 blocks. You could have eaten 10, you could have eaten 12. Like, we have no idea. And like, based on this swing on the scale, I'm thinking you ate more than what you think it represents in terms of blocks. And that's why it swung so far. And that is like, apart from potentially like all the other metabolic things that were happening because you don't usually eat dairy, and potential like inflammation or just water retention and things like that. So if we want to add a new food item, we have to take the time to weigh it and calculate it and know how much one portion is, because then at least you know visually how much you should be eating. Or at this point, it's like, well, if I'm going to have like this much cheese, is it really worth it?
Well, and here's the thing. Like, I know better. Like, I knew better. I didn't think it was going to be that much damage. I was like, well, it'll be up a little bit, whatever. I'm not going to stress. I did stress over a 12-pound gain. That was stressful. But
so I'm going to put that as like just a reminder.
Here's the thing, though, Carolyn, is that the cheese causes other problems.
Yeah,
it's not
exactly.
Like, I know better. It bothers my body. Like, why put myself through that shit?
I mean, because you're still going to do it again in the future. And like, meaning, I know how bad alcohol makes me feel the next day. I'm still going to do it. Like, I know I'm going to weigh more on the scale. I'm still going to do it. Like, we're not going to block off like whole food items for the rest of your life. Like, they might happen less frequently because you know the consequence that it has, but you're most likely going to encounter this situation, and whether it's cheese or anything else.
Probably.
Right? So it's more a question of, when this type of situation comes up again, what are we going to do? So the proper thing, especially like if you're you were at home, you were cooking, you had access to the scale, you had access to the nutritional values, like ideally when you bought the cheese, like there was something on it, unless you went to like a market and then it's like they just wrap it and then they give it to you and you're like, I have no idea what this is. But then you just have to go do research online. But so because of all like the elements of control that you had with being at home, then it's just taking the 5 minutes to be like, I need to have this information so I can guide my decision.
Yes.
Right. Because then you can see exactly how much you're going to eat if you commit to eat, or like I said, if it's just not worth it for that day because you're like, okay, it's too little. And I know for that quantity, it's still going to disrupt everything. Then we don't do it. But at least you have a reference point. Now, again, if you're out at a restaurant or you're, out wedding something, then that becomes like harder to do. And that's more of a like, yes or no, am I going to do it? But there are always going to be situations where you're going to have foods or drinks that aren't going to fit or sit well with your digestion, and we're still going to go with it.
Well, and that's true too. Like, it wasn't just the cheese, it was like all these different kinds of salads, and there was all kinds of things, and it was very good. But I'm like, I have no idea what was in them.
There's probably extra oil, like in some of the salads, or extra mayo, or like whatever other fats that were in there. Like, it really depends what the salads were. But, and usually if they tasted good, they're either high in fat or high in salt. So again, like,
they were fabulous.
They're delicious. And they were 12 pounds worth of delicious.
They were.
You enjoyed them. But that's the thing. Like,
I enjoyed it.
And you don't eat out that much, and you do have a lot of control on how much salt, how much fat, like everything that you put on your plate. So it could be the cheese. It could be like just the whole evening of just not having that much control, because those salads, we have no idea what was in it. And there's probably way more salt than you usually consume, which is going to, affect your water retention and just like in general, your digestive system, right? So
it was like the, there was probably like 10 things happening at once. It was the start of the cycle. I didn't know that until Monday. Okay. And I was like, we have that, we have this. So it was like this Armageddon.
Yeah.
12-pound Armageddon. So I'm sure a lot of that was just cycle. Oh, there was something I was going to tell you today, and this might be fascinating for future check-ins. I finally got my Polar.
Okay.
What's really cool about this Polar watch is that it's got the coach's dashboard. And something that I learned just this morning, because today's day 3, so you have to wear it before you can start picking up data. I made the decision just this morning, like we've been flexible about this, but I have to cut the coffee off at 2. Okay. Like it needs to be a steadfast rule for me. Like I can't keep breaking it, because like it's showing up in my sleep.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, this is probably the coolest dashboard I've ever had, but it shows this little thing where it says nightly recharge, and I keep getting really poor scores.
Yeah.
And it keeps saying, only do light training, only do light training. I'm like, what is going on? Like, I feel fine, but like, according to statistics, this is some shitty sleep.
So yeah, people often say like, it won't prevent me from sleeping. Like, even if you drink coffee at night, it won't prevent you from falling asleep. It can affect the quality of your sleep.
That's what I think is happening.
So you can try it, like no more coffee after 2, and see if your sleep does improve. And there's also like, unfortunately, like, are you a good sleeper or a bad sleeper? Like, I know a lot of people who like hated Whoop, don't like having all this information, because they're like, the only message they're getting is like, stop, you're doing it wrong, you're not getting enough of this.
Yes,
you're just it's like true. Yeah, you're like, okay, well, I'm getting all this negative feedback, and it's really discouraging. So like, people just stop. And it's like, also, you have to remember that all this information gathering, they're just trying to make like generalization. So you might be like slightly out of this norm, and then all it's going to keep telling you is like, you have poor sleep, you have poor sleep. And it's like, well, yes, you have poor sleep compared to the millions of other sleep recordings that they have and whatever.
No,
being in the norm.
True. And so I hated the Whoop, and that's the reason I got rid of it. It's because I'm like, everything it was telling me was contrary to how I was feeling. So that was frustrating me.
Yeah.
The one thing that I am looking at, despite the fact that it says poor sleep, what I'm looking at is how many times I wake up during the night. That's what I'm paying attention to. And I'm waking up like every hour, all night long. And I'm like,
which is abnormal.
Something is
not abnormal.
That is a little abnormal.
It's not.
I mean, like,
that might just be you. So like, what? Because we have like a bunch of people at the gym that have the Whoop, and it's like, if I wake up, I don't know, like 7 to 11 times, like disturbances, whatever, then that's my normal. But we had people that had like 20. but that's what they had no matter what. They train in the morning, train in the evening, more sleep, less sleep, caffeine. Like you test everything out. And that was just like their baseline. It's the same thing. Like my breaths per minute, I think I'm at like 12.
Okay.
Like I breathe really slowly and like I just don't have that many. And most people are around like 15 to 17. Right. So like every minute. So that's just where I sit. So that might seem like a lot to you, but it might just be your normal. And the polar is going to get used to that also. Like you need weeks and months to make sure that like you're.
It's true. But what I think would be helpful, especially since this is in the beginning and why I say like that cutoff needs to be firm, is so that I can help get a good baseline. So I know it's not going to be caffeine, so that I can watch. I'm like, really just for this part, cut it off so that I know it's not that.
Yeah. So that's fine.
But my brain is definitely awake all night long.
Have you been taking coffee? Because that was one of our.
Yes, I have. Yes. Yes.
Okay. And why? Which is fine. Why?
There's no reason other than I enjoy it. There's really no other reason.
Okay. So do we need to have a replacement for that mental break, for that like pleasure time for you? Because if it's something that you enjoy, then it's not something like we can take out the coffee, but we just need to keep the enjoyable activity. So what can we replace it with around that time when you would have your coffee?
I started making my flavored waters again. So I cut up fruit and make the bottled flavored waters. And those are just as fun. And I enjoy those just as much. It was just doing it.
So instead of having the coffee, we're going to replace it with the flavored water. That way we're not changing the consistency and your routine and all of that.
Right.
We're just removing the coffee, not the activity. Does that make sense?
Okay. Yes.
I
think the truth of it is, Carolyn, is that I just drink too much coffee. I think that's really the truth of it. I just drink too much coffee.
We probably all drink too much coffee.
I'm like, fine. I have to cut it. You know, there was a lot of value in Wild Health did a bunch of blood work on me. And one of the things that it said is that your particular body doesn't break down caffeine like other people. And I'm like, I know this and I do it anyway. You know what I mean? Like, I know what the results are telling me. I know how I feel. I can see it on my thing. My sleep is being affected and I still drink it. And now it's just, like now it's just, what's the word I'm looking for? Like, now I'm just punishing myself,
But like I said earlier with the cheese, it's the same thing. Like eventually we're not either going to cut out everything and we're not going to control every behavior that we ever have. You're going to have those moments. So we can remove the coffee, keep the activity, right? You can have some cheese sometimes as long as, all things being equal, what the consequences are and kind of be there. Because if you're always, if you always feel like you're depriving yourself and saying no to everything, at some point you're going to say yes. And that yes, the more you say no, that's the tipping point, right? Because eventually it's like, well, maybe you can have a coffee like once a week at 2.
I don't know if it's so much from me that I feel deprived.
Yeah.
I think for me, it's just like with anything else. Once I get in the habit, it doesn't feel that way. So I think for me, it's just like work this week on trying to make it a habit of cutting that pot off at 2.
Okay. So replacing it with the water.
Yeah. I don't feel deprived because I get coffee all morning. You know what I mean? So I need to look at this as more like, this is going to help you.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a loss.
I mean, ideally it will, because you'll see.
Yeah.
And I don't know how long it will take your polar to get enough data. Like I know with the Whoop, they're like the first 90 days are basically like your baseline. Yeah. So if which is fine because usually people get it so that they change their behavior. So as whatever Fitbit, polar, like whatever you're using, if you start modifying a lot of behavior, then the thing is just confused because it just doesn't have a proper baseline. So you will have to give yourself like plenty of time, knowing that you're changing your behavior, and then kind of take it from there. But it's so it's not like don't do it or do it. It's more like what the more you're changing, the longer it will take for it to get to what your true baseline is.
True, but at least I'm changing it in the very beginning.
Yes. Yeah. That's why I'm saying if you want to change it, then you can change it.
Now's a good time.
Yeah. Just make sure that you give yourself like enough times to compare.
Right.
And it takes longer. It takes the people are like, oh, after a week. It's like, no. It takes way longer than that, unfortunately.
See, it gave me a notification. You reached your activity goal for the day. That's nice. Already? Wow. It's 8:30 in the morning.
I mean, who knows?
Hooray.
So no more coffee. So that's going to be our homework number 1. We're replacing it with the flavor water.
Yep.
In the future, especially if you're at home, then we want to make sure that any new food that we introduce, we portion it out and we know, like, you're not eyeballing it. You know exactly how much you need to eat to constitute a block and then take it from there. And then anything else with the nutrition that you noticed in the last 3 weeks? What was our?
Not really. I mean, I'm super happy with, other than this incident, I'm super happy with the food choices. Like, my skin is so clear. It hasn't been this clear in like 10 years.
That's good.
Okay.
Nice.
I love I don't have any other issue. Our fruits, the kiwis, all that stuff that we talked about on the last one, like, I feel great. No other. The loss rate is slow. I think the further along that we get, the more I appreciate that, because I want to try and, to some degree, like, loose skin is something that you can't necessarily control, because a lot of loose skin is really controlled by your DNA.
Yeah. Okay.
But you can control some of it. And I feel like the slower, like, it's letting my body adjust a little bit better. So, I mean, I don't have a problem with it. As long as the trend is always going down right now, I'm cool with whatever it kicked out.
So we had talked about that last time in terms of, like, what's the rate that we're going to enjoy as, things keep progressing, because that rate is going to feel like it's slowing down, because now it's a percentage game. Like, it's not a numbers, it's like a percentage of your body weight that we're going to want to be in. So that number is always going to be smaller. So you said you were happy with it being slow. Would you want it to be a little bit faster, or is there like numbers that you feel like that are more significant than others?
I thought about that. I've actually put a lot of thought into that in the last week or two. I would say no, because for a higher rate, that means that I would have to adjust some other areas.
Yeah.
And I don't think it would be sustainable if I made them any lower than they are. Like, if I stayed right here for forever, I think I would be okay.
Oh, okay.
But I think if I went any lower than right now, one, I don't think life would be fun.
Yeah.
Like, come on. But I think this is sustainable. So if 1 to 2 pounds is sustainable, I'm okay with that. Okay. So if that's what it's going to mean at the end of the year, I'm going to be okay, because I know I'm going to be proud no matter what. So I'll take whatever it gives me.
Okay. And so the nutrition is going well.
Yeah.
The fitness is going well.
Yeah.
Because we had talked about like strength training and things like that. Is there anything like in the second half of the year that you're like, oh, I really want to be able to do this movement or lift these weights or do this workout in such and such a time? Like, do you have fitness targets like you have your weight loss targets?
That's interesting. And I've gone back and forth on that too, because as the weight is coming down, one of the very first things that I noticed, and this is when I was still working with Pete, is that those PR numbers were changing. And Pete's like, the reality is that you don't have as much weight behind the barbell anymore. And he said, sometimes it's not like you're not strong. It's just, you don't have the momentum, 65 pounds or whatever. That's a lot of momentum behind the barbell. And it's quite possible that, your numbers are going to go down. And so his advice, which I think I agreed with, is not to focus on any PRs right now, just because I think I'm going to get frustrated. I think it would be better to start working on PRs once the body gets to like homeostasis, whatever that is. Okay. But it's definitely not right here. I think it's just the body's still making too many changes, and it's going to be going through a lot of changes. I think the only goal that I really have is to just continue to watch the in-bodies. As long as my muscles mass is staying the same or getting higher, I'm okay with that. But in terms of like, do I want to go for a 400-pound deadlift? I'm not sure that's part of the plan.
Have your numbers gone down? Like, have you noticed anything?
No, not yet. And that's what I look at too. I was like, well, It's not showing that I'm losing muscle. I think
no, I meant like your like squat, deadlift, or like, are any of those numbers going down?
No.
Okay.
No.
So a PR, because a PR could be not necessarily like increasing your back squat by 10 pounds. It could just be maintaining your back squat at what it is with a lower body weight, because that also means you're getting stronger.
Yes. That's the goal.
Okay.
That's the goal. Let's see here.
Because I know street parking. I don't know street parking, but I know they have like some specialty tracks, and they probably have like a strength track or things like that. And it's like, so is there a lift that you enjoy doing, or is there something that we can anchor more on the strength part to make sure that you're building the muscle? Because again, like the percentage is going to change on the scale, but if we're building muscle, then that's always a good thing.
What would that look like, you think?
What do you mean?
Like an example, like,
well, like if you enjoy deadlifting, like if that's your lift, right? Then do they have a strength program where like once a week, like I don't know what their frequency, like I don't know what their tracks look like, but do they have like a deadlift track where you're deadlifting at least once a week? So a little bit like the long and slow, like that you're doing every day, getting those steps in. Like, do we have something that we can anchor once a week that can focus on something that you enjoy and also is going to build muscle? Like,
well, I actually started their bench track. Okay. One, because I love bench, and I didn't do it a lot. Yeah. But the numbers are going up every week.
Okay. So that's good. So it's more something like that, because like we want to make sure that, like, especially as the weight isn't coming down as fast, like you said, like if it's still 1 to 2 pounds, that's great. But we want to make sure that the flip side of the medal is that you're building muscle.
Yes.
Right. So the weight is not going to drop as fast, because what's happening is we're losing, but we're gaining at the same time. So that like, it's just not as drastic. Right. But we want to build the muscle. So that's why it's like, well, where can we focus? And just having like, especially something that you enjoy doing, that you could, you'll make it a regular thing then. And I know they have like a lot of stuff. So it's like, what can we utilize? Because that's still going to, again, like ideally in the next 3 to 6 months, when you do your next scan, you should be eating more because you have more muscle mass and you need to feed that and like feed your exercise and all that. So the goal is not to eat like a bird and eat this much. It's like, no, you need to eat what you need to eat. And ideally you can eat as much as you can, because like that's how much muscle and that's how much you should be eating.
Honestly, like if it has anything to do with the barbell, I'm all over it. It doesn't matter what it is. It could be a deadlift. It could be a bench. It could be anything. But I'm already doing the bench track. So I say deadlift.
What?
Maybe we'll work on the trio: deadlifts, bench, back squat.
Mm-hmm.
Not a bad idea.
Yeah.
I think too, And I think that this is a little underrated, but mobility is a big deal with me. When I say mobility, it's a lot of this is being able to increase some of the stability. So some of this is like carryover from the surgeries. So one of those movements was the snatch, like it had finally just gotten to a point, I want to say in like May, where I could do the hop, I call it the little hop. I wasn't able to do that before because the legs just weren't stable enough. They were just like, and now I can do that. So even though the weight is very small on a snatch for me, it's like 45 to 55 pounds. It's really light, but I hadn't been able to do all that stuff before. So I want to keep an eye on stuff like that too. Like being able to build on something like that where I know where the baseline was. I was starting out on a PVC. So, that's good too. Or like something that just happened the other day, like, like a common warm up is like where you put your foot up to like a pole or a beam and then you bend your knee. And the goal is to try and touch the bar or the whatever. And I was able to do that on the right side. First time since surgeries. And that was a big deal.
Nice.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anyway, that was a good day.
So those are good things to keep focusing on. And like you said, like, because you have the pre and post surgery, like that hard thing can also be like something that's going to end up being easy because like all of a sudden you can do it.
Right.
Like you can challenge yourself and like, I know you have your goals for like doing the hard thing, but like I remember the first time I tried to hang with like just one arm and I just couldn't, and I was just swinging and I was like, what is happening? Like that was like 10 years ago. I was just like, and then one time I was like, okay, I have to demo this, and I did it and I was like, oh my God, I can do, but it's just like I wasn't training it. It's just like I retested and it just happened. So if you know that you have things like that, like pre and post surgery that used to be difficult, like go back and see where you're at. Like you might be at the same level, but you might also just get a win. And those are things that now used to be difficult.
I mean, I've been getting little wins along the way. Like one of them was when I first started in January, like I might be able to string 1 or 2 knee ups together. Like those are really hard for me coming back. And now we're like at 10.
Nice.
That's big for me.
Yeah.
So things like that where it's like, okay, I know my grip strength is getting better. My arm strength's getting better. My ability to even get my knees up to my belly, that's getting a little better, So, I mean, I notice all kinds of stuff.
Okay, good. Anything that we anticipate in the next, because I think we have one more meeting before the games, like on the 25th. I feel like we have one. And then then you're going on vacation. So between now and the next meeting, is there anything that you want to make sure that you're anchoring so that at the next meeting we can go over that, but then also plan that beach trip?
Beach trip. It's going to be good. It's going to be good. I'm going to be with other CrossFitters. It's going to be great.
Any more barbecues that you think you'll have in the next 3 weeks? Okay.
Today is the 4th of July.
Yeah.
But I'm not going into any barbecues today. It's thundering and it's raining. So I doubt the typical festivities will be happening today.
Okay.
So nothing out of the ordinary. No.
Okay. No upcoming trips. Any changes in your schedule for any prep work that you need to do for that? Okay. So technically we're supposed to be smooth sailing for the next 3 weeks.
Smooth sailing really almost for a month because I don't leave out until like the 5th of August.
Yeah. So morning routine, night routine. We're good.
We're solid.
Post, me time, all of that. We're good.
Yep.
Groceries, planning, all of that. We're good.
Yeah. No issue.
So the only thing we need to worry about is no coffee after 2 p.m. because we're replacing it with the flavored water.
Yep.
And then just staying consistent with the bench press track and improving some of the other movements that you've been improving.
Right.
Perfect. That sounds like a plan.
Yeah, it does. It's good. And we'll see, like, I'll add you to this dashboard because it's a coach's dashboard, but like some of the things in here could be super interesting. I'm learning a lot already. So we'll see what the stock and coffee.
So you wear it at night also?
Yeah, I wear it all day, every day.
Okay. Cool.
I like it better than the Apple Watch because I don't have to charge it as much.
Oh. Well, yeah, I mean, if you have all your notifications on the Apple Watch, you're just gonna drain. I mean, I don't know if you get like all your messages on that watch as well, but it's like also we have a phone, people. Like how much connectivity do you need?
I know. I tried to love it. I just didn't. Yeah, I don't want to know who's calling on my wrist.
I mean, some people do, and that's fine. But it just makes me laugh. It's like, no, I have a phone. I'm good.
I need to be able to turn it off.
Yeah, you can. That's because I had one at one point, and I was just like, I don't need Facebook and Instagram and messages and everything. Like, I have my phone for that. I'm good.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yep. All right. Well,
anything else? Happy 4th of July. Oh, you cut out. Did I cut out?
No, I probably did. It just StreamYard. That's what it does. When is our next one?
The 25th, I think, is what I remember, which is another Thursday.
Okay.
Yep.
I'm just checking my calendar. Yeah, you're right. Thursday.
Perfect.
Okay.
Excellent. Stay consistent.
We'll see.
If there's anything, you reach out. And,
okay.
Have a good day.
I will. See you soon.
Bye.
Bye.